Jai Hind everyone. Now, every time a period movie, a movie based upon Indian battles or wars, or upon any real event comes up, it comes up along with a controversy. Few claims that have been made or are made in the picturization finally end up in starting some controversy. Moreover, we can also say that at times the dramatization goes overboard and tries to convey something that was not deemed to have happened. Now, a similar event has happened with the recent series Operation Safed Sagar. Now, this Operation Safed Sagar has sparked a nationwide debate, and a question has been arising: did the US really manipulate GPS signals during the Kargil war? Now, just in order to understand the situation, what if in the middle of a war your navigation system starts lying to you? Now that is exactly what a new Netflix series has claimed to happen in the 1990 war, Kargil war. But today in this session we will separate the fact from the fiction, and we will have insights from the men who led the mission. The then commanding officer of the number 17 squadron, then wing commander B.S. Dhanoa, and the former chief of the air staff, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa, now making things clear. So today in this session we would understand each and everything, and we will find out that what had actually happened and what was something that had given a setback to our security forces. Now, when we start off with this discussion, okay, now when we start off with this discussion, there are many things that have to be understood. Moreover, Kargil war was one such war wherein we had improvised from every setback. Kargil war was nothing short of a learning experience for the entire Indian Armed Forces. And the Kargil war has acted as a catalyst in the modernization of the Indian Armed Forces also. So now the bigger question comes: did US manipulate GPS during the Kargil war as it has been shown in Operation Safed Sagar series? Now, the former IAF chief, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa, the then commanding officer of number 17 squadron of the MiG-21 during the Kargil war, has talked upon the minute details of the event. The details events from the conflict that have been referred in this new series. Now, this new series has talked about the legend, okay, the legend squadron leader Ajay Ahuja, and how there is a strong leader behind a legend. Okay, so it has also made everyone understand the role of the commanding officer. And recently, in fact, today itself, I went through the newspaper and I found out that the Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa, who was the then CEO of squadron leader Ajay Ahuja, has been visiting the family of squadron leader Ahuja ever since the Kargil had happened. So, this these series or these movies, no matter, okay, they may dramatize something, but they make everyone try to acknowledge and to understand that what essentially is the role of the Indian Air Force, or incomplete the armed forces, and how few people have given up everything for better future of every citizen of this country. Now, starting off with this session, now starting off with this with the details of this, okay. So, first and foremost, what all things I'll be discussing with you in this session, I'll discuss the exact event that had happened, the exact controversy that had happened during the time, and what was the essential learning that we had. Okay, so today we'll be covering some major facts. Okay, so from Hollywood drama to hard facts, and from American denial to India's self-reliance, we'll be discussing everything. Now, when we talk about the claims that have been made in the series Operation Safed Sagar. Now, this series Operation Safed Sagar suggests that American GPS manipulation affected the Indian bombing operations during the Kargil war, and it depicts the pilots receiving false navigation signals from the US satellites. Now, the implications of this: a foreign power deliberately sabotaging India's war efforts. So, this is something that has been shown. Okay, so we should understand that a public narrative has emerged that the US gave false GPS signals to India during the Kargil war. Now, this is actually the scene that everyone is talking about. In this series, the pilots realize that their GPS is giving them wrong readings and they suspect American foul play. Moreover, this series has sparked intense debates across the country. Social media is now flooded with questions: Did America betray us? Was our war effort compromised? But there is different real story, and the real story has been told by the man who was actually in the cockpit then, who was directing the men who were actually flying that day. So, if we hear everything from him, everything has been set very straightforward by the retired Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanua. Now, he was then commanding the number 17 squadron. Okay, so he was commanding the number 17 squadron Golden Arrows during the Kargil war. And he flew MiG-21s, led the first low-level night bombing mission on June 27, 1999. Now, later on, he became the Chief of the Air Staff, the highest rank in the Air Force, and no one is more qualified to speak on what really happened that day. Clear? So, his authority cannot be questioned on that day. Clear? So, a group of people, they believe that there was some deliberate manipulation. But personally, I do not think that perception is correct. Okay, so the former Chief of the Staff, Air Marshal B.S. Dhanua, he that day was in the cockpit. He led his squadron through the moonlit valleys at 18,000 feet. He personally had experienced the GPS issues, and his verdict is very clear on this. His verdict is clear, and he has given that it wasn't a conspiracy. It was technology. Now, let us understand how it happened. Okay, so firstly, I'm making it very clear that as it has been put forward, okay, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanua has now made it very clear that it was not a conspiracy, it was not some deliberate manipulation, but it was technology, okay, that gave us the setback. Okay, so when we talk about that, why the GPS had showed errors then. Okay, so the first reason is the selective availability. Okay, so due to the global policy, okay, the complete maps are not available. Okay, now until May 2000, the US deliberately degraded civilian GPS accuracy to approx 100 meters worldwide. Now, this was a standing US policy and not a Kargil war action. Now, every civilian GPS user had then globally faced the same error. Second reason is the data mismatch. Now, maps did not match the satellites. Okay, Indian military maps use the Everest spheroid, the Indian survey standard, and GPS satellites use the American WGS 84 model. Now, this created a systematic offset. So, there was not a complete coordinated alignment that could happen that day. Next, third reason is technical glitches, which is not spoofing. So, handheld GPS sets were carried by pilots, which were issued, and initial apprehension was that signals were being spoofed. Now, this turned out to be a technical issue that was later on sorted out. Clear? So, we have to understand is that if the US did not manipulate the GPS, why were our pilots getting wrong readings? Okay, now this answer is, even though seems to be boring, but it is very factual. And the first thing, selective availability, that was a global policy that degraded the civilian GPS to approximately 100 meters everywhere, and it was in place till 2000. Okay, second reason has been the Everest spheroid. Now, this is a different or what we can say, a different mathematical model of the earth. Okay, now while GPS had been using the WGS 84 model, and we had been using the Everest spheroid. This created a systematic offset. Pilots had to manually convert the coordinates which were given to them, and the handheld GPS issues were technical glitches, which was not American sabotage. And as Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanwa had also put it very clearly, very straightforward, that these turned out to be the technical issues which were later on sorted out. Okay, but the question now comes up is that how India had actually suffered. Okay, so how India had actually suffered, though the real denial. The US had refused military grade GPS to us. Now, this was the actual betrayal that had taken place. Okay, so the real betrayal is it was not the signal manipulation but signal denial. When India had asked the US for help, US said no. Okay, so US did not spoof GPS, they simply refused to share the military grade data India deliberately needed at that time. Okay, India needed that data at that time. Now, the bigger question is, why did the US say no? Okay, so the CIA had significant military logistics presence in Pakistan at that time, and helping India would have compromised US operations in the Pakistan. So this was the actual reason. So we must understand this thing very clearly, that US always thinks of itself. Okay, US has got nothing to do with its allies, okay, its friends. US just thinks of itself. Okay, so at that moment of time, the only idea US had was that helping India would have endangered their own operation. So India was then left to fight in the world's toughest terrain with only standard maps and ground intelligence alone. Clear? Moreover, this was not just an inconvenience, it was a wake up call for the entire national security. Okay, now the consequences, the Indian troops had to rely on standard maps and ground intelligence to continue fighting. So the immediate consequences the Indian side that had to face were these. Okay, but ultimately this was something that led us to self-reliance. Okay, now it has rightly been called a national security wake-up call. Okay, so we need to understand that the geopolitical needs, they teach us that some countries can deny you the service at the actual time when you needed them desperately. Okay, they can deny you something that you need at the time of conflict, and it is also a way of arm twisting. And this is how a country should protect itself against that. Now, what had actually happened after it? Okay, the aftermath of it. Okay, so in 99, the US denied GPS. India realized that it is inevitable to have an indigenous system. In 2006, the government formally approved the project, and it was in 2013-2018 that the first generation satellite IRNSS first series was launched. Okay, now this is something that we need to understand. Okay, now this was how in 2016, okay, system becomes operational and PM Modi called it Navic. Okay, Navic is navigation with Indian constellation. It is India's own regional navigation system. Now, this Navic is basically, it is a constellation of 7 satellites which are covering India, and it is doing so in 1500 kilometers beyond its borders. Okay, now this has dual signals: standard civilian signal, which has approximately 5-meter accuracy, and also has encrypted military signal. Okay, moreover, this Navic is technically superior to GPS. How? It uses dual frequencies. Okay, and it keeps on correcting the atmospheric errors directly. So this Kargil experience made India realize that depending upon a foreign power for critical defense technology is a strategic vulnerability. Okay, so we can also understand one thing, that we can say that denial is the mother of invention. When America said no, India said we will build our own. Okay, and it was by 2016 India had joined an elite club. When US had GPS, Russia had GLONASS, European Union had Galileo, China had Baidu, and now India has its own Navic. Okay, so this is the kicker here. Okay, this Navic is actually better than GPS. It uses dual frequency, okay, the S and L bands. Okay, now this means that it can measure atmospheric delays directly. Now this GPS, it uses only the L band and has to guess the error through the models that have been preloaded. Navic gives 5-meter accuracy versus GPS 20-30-meter accuracy, and the approx cost, okay, is 1400 crores. Now this 1400 crores is relatively a small price for strategic autonomy, and today, due to Navic, the Indian missiles, warships, and even smartphones, okay, they have been using this, and now India will never again have to beg for navigation data in the war. So this is the power that we had been able to generate for ourselves. Clear? So when we have to understand this entire situation, just take it like this. Okay, if next time someone tells us that US manipulated GPS during Kargil, now we know the real story. So it was not manipulation, it was denial. Okay, and that denial finally gave birth to something extraordinary and superior. Okay, ultimately the Indian eyes in the sky. Clear? So this Netflix series, it gave us a drama. Okay, they gave us the real story, okay, of a nation that turned a technical denial into a strategic asset, and it is far more powerful. Now India learned a lesson in a harder way. Okay, and then now we have understood that self-reliance is not optional for a nation with strategic ambitions. Okay, and today Navik stands as testament to that lesson. Clear? Moreover, now before winding it up, I would suggest each one of you to please go and watch that series once. Okay, it will give you a real sense of idea as to how India had strategically defeated Pakistan in the Kargil war, and how essentially, even though the majority of odds were against us, okay, but still we fought our way out. Okay, and the course correction was carried out at every stage. Okay, the improvisations were carried out at every stage. Moreover, do let me know about your views on the series and how about you think about this controversy. Clear? Chaliye. Now moving and finally reminding you that we are starting our GS Foundation batches on 14th of August. Okay, but a greater information, the Freedom Day sale is live now. Okay, you can save up to 79% and double validity is available to you in this Freedom Day sale. Clear? So this is a limited period offer, limited seats are there. You just need to use this code SRM live to avail all the discounts and benefits of the smart ecosystem of preparation. Clear? So do not forget, you can save up to 79% plus double validity on all StudyIQ courses. You just need to use the code SRM Live. Clear? So this was all from my side today. We'll see you all in the next session. Jai Hind.